I describe myself as a Beardsley enthusiast. I'm not an art historian, I'm just an ordinary person, and I would like to share some observations from the world of my favourite artist. Beardsley was born in Brighton, and it was he who lured me to live there. The 16th of March this year marks the 121st anniversary of his death from tuberculosis at the age of just 25. He died in 1898. I will introduce him briefly, but rather than focus on his life and work, I've put together a selection of my favourite examples of where Beardsley crops up in popular culture. It was around the age of 14 that I first encountered his work in this book from my school library. It was this picture. Being a bit of a goth, this picture appealed to me. I photocopied it, and then I forgot about it for some years later, when I saw this book and recognised it as the same artist. Since then, there has been no going back. This is probably the most famous portrait of him, taken by his friend Frederick Evans in 1894. Apparently, Evans told Beardsley that he had the face of a gargoyle, so Aubrey immediately imitated the pose of one from the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. I'd just like to read a quote from Life in Brighton by Clifford Musgrave, and he was the former director of the Royal Pavilion. And he said, "Is it altogether too extravagant a notion to imagine that in the sophistication, the incisive elegance, the brilliance, the clear-cut vision, and not least in the provocative eroticism of Beardsley's work, we may perceive qualities that are implicit in the atmosphere and spirit of Brighton itself?" So, here's the place he was born in 1872, and this is 12 Buckingham Road in Brighton. It's now numbered 31. On the plaque outside, he is described as Master of Line. I can't help but imagine his mum flinging open the front door and saying, "He's not the Master of Line, he's a very naughty boy!" In an interview, Beardsley said, "I have one aim, the grotesque. If I am not grotesque, I am nothing." This is an early drawing and an example of that grotesqueness. I think dentists should stick the copy of this picture to their ceiling. Probably the most widely recognised of his works are the illustrations for Wilde's play Salome, which was published in 1894. Beardsley had read the French edition and made a drawing of Salome with John the Baptist's head, which was printed in the Studio magazine. Wilde saw this and commissioned him for the English publication. However, he did not commission the caricatures of himself that Beardsley slipped into the drawings. The Salome illustrations were popularised in the 1960s and 70s by the poster shop Athena and appeared on many household items. But this may seem to be familiar to you. Another significant publication was the Yellow Book, the art and literary journal. Beardsley was a founder and art editor, and initially it brought him success until the Wilde scandal of 1895. The Yellow Book was meant to suggest the appearance of a French novel. These were usually bound in yellow covers, and this gave it a shock value, as French novels would not have been considered appropriate reading for the great British public. When Wilde was arrested, newspapers reported him as carrying a yellow book as he was led away. The public assumed that it was the Yellow Book, and Beardsley was sacked from his own magazine. So why was he a very naughty boy? This is one of the illustrations for the Greek comedy Lysistrata by Aristophanes. In the play, the women all go on a sex strike until the men cease warring with each other. Beardsley's inspiration for these figures were figures on ancient Greek pottery, but he has propelled them into the 18th century. There's another one here. For those of you familiar with Brighton, this is sometimes titled Friday Night on West Street. And surely this must be the most delicately drawn fart in the history of art. It was pictures like these which earned Beardsley his reputation. In 1966, a London card shop was raided by the Obscene Publications Squad, who seized all the Aubrey Beardsley postcards they could find. When told the same pictures were on display at the V&A in the huge Beardsley exhibition, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner went round to investigate unannounced. There was public outrage at apparent police raid on a national public institution. With red faces all round, apologies were made and the postcards returned to the shop. 1896 is considered to be the beginning of cinema in Britain, and so Beardsley didn't have very long to experience this new medium. I think he would have loved the cinema, and here are a few examples of Beardsley on film. But first, I must mention one which has never been made, but surely it should have been. For if Stephen Fry was born to be wild, then surely Mackenzie Crook was born to be Beardsley. Is it too late? In his 40s, can he play a 25-year-old? Age didn't stop Anna Nanzimova from playing the teen Salome when she was 42, in an early Beardsley tribute, the 1923 version of Wilde's play, which she starred in, wrote and directed. The costumes and sets were designed by her lover, Natasha Rambova, and inspired by the original illustrations. So I'll just show you a few stills from the film here. And you can see this is obviously inspired by the Peacock skirt picture. If you're wondering why Anna looks so surprised, it's because she's just heard that in 2015 her Salome wig turned up in a trunk of costumes in a storage building in Columbus, Georgia. In films, it is often the case that a liking for Beardsley is shorthand for character of a dubious nature, and so you might spot a copy of the Yellow Book on a table or a framed picture on the wall in the background to signify their decadent or evil personality. A great example is Black Lizard, a 1968 Japanese film directed by Kinji Fukasaku. The film is based on a play by Yukiya Mishima, who appears in the film as a taxidermic human specimen. The play, in turn, is based on a novel by Edogawa Rampo, an exponent of the genre known as Iroguru, which depicts erotic, grotesque nonsense. And the story goes like this. A jewel thief, Black Lizard, pits her wits against top detective Akechi as he tries to thwart her latest scheme via a complex plot and a riot of flamboyant costumes. And here's the Black Lizard peeping out from behind one of the Beardsley pictures, spying on somebody. And here, the Black Lizard is confronted with the ultimate horror. Which Beardsley poster should she buy from Athena? Next, we have George Barry's film, Deathbed, the Bed That Eats. It was actually shot in 1972, but no print was released until 1977. I'll give you a summary of the story here. Long ago, a demon fell in love with a woman and conjured up a bed on which to make love to her. The woman died during the act, and in his grief, the demon wept tears of blood, which fell on the bed and caused it to come to life. While the demon rests, the bed's evil is contained. But once every 10 years, the demon wakes, giving the bed the power to physically eat human beings. Only one man, an artist identified as Aubrey Beardsley, was spared, as the bed condemned him to immortality behind a painting where he must forever witness the bed taking victims. And here we see the painting on the left, and then the next picture is Aubrey Beardsley trapped behind the painting. The film is divided up into 4 parts: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and just desserts. It is not to be confused with the 2002 film of the same name, which fails to feature Beardsley. And Patrick Spence Thomas, who plays Beardsley, was also the sound mixer on the film. On to Suspiria by Dario Argento, also released in 1977. The story of a young American dancer who enrolls at a German ballet school, only to discover that there is more going on than meets the eye. This is an example of the genre known as giallo, a 20th century Italian thriller or horror genre of literature and film. The word giallo is Italian for yellow, and the term derives from a series of cheap cheap paperback mystery novels with yellow covers that were popular in post-fascist Italy. So this links back to the Yellow Book and the connections with the decadent French novels of the 19th century. Oddly enough, while Beardsley was famous for his monochrome palette, Suspiria was filmed in Technicolor, and production designer Giuseppe Bassan makes an astounding use of vibrant colour. So here we have the actress Jessica Harper playing the lead, and she arrives at the school to be interviewed. You can see the Beardsley pictures in the background on the sort of grid there. Gradually, she senses that something sinister is going on at the school. And the final horror, as she realises that the school has been decorated by Laurence Llewelyn-Bowen. You may think I'm joking, but take a short leap sideways and forwards to the summer of 1998, and this is how Laurence Llewelyn-Bowen transformed a Plymouth couple's bedroom. Let's hope they hadn't seen Deathbed. This is a short film after Beardsley, which you can find on YouTube, and I thoroughly recommend you have a look. It was made in 1982, and it's a hand-drawn animation by Chris James. In his words, the film After Beardsley attempts to depict today's world through Beardsley's eyes and his drawing style. Beardsley is resurrected from his deathbed and begins to walk through time to the present. On his journey, he witnesses the evolution of the car and of air and sea travel. He then climbs a phallic mountain before descending into 20th century New York City. The premise of the film is that if Beardsley had been alive today instead of the 1890s, modern medicine would have kept him alive, but that having had a glimpse of where the world was heading, he may have chosen to die anyway. As I mentioned, the main Beardsley revival began during the 1960s. I'm not a fan of the Beatles, but I love the 1968 film Yellow Submarine, and I was convinced that amongst all the detailed backgrounds, some trace of Aubrey's work must have been smuggled in. So I went through the film, scouring every scene, and eventually I found what I had been looking for. Can you see that bit there? Just that head. There's a face and hair, and then I'll just show you this picture. And then you can see there, it's this. So it's just a tiny little snippet of one of the drawings that's hidden there. Beardsley was also one of the crowd gathered for the Sgt. Pepper cover by Peter Blake in 1967. He's just right on the edge there, he is there. He looks a little bit like he's giving Oscar Wilde an evil look, but he is in good company. Oscar Wilde is just there, but he's also with Alistair Crowley. Who is he? He's there, sorry. He was a Beardsley admirer. And Edgar Allan Poe here, and Beardsley illustrated the works of Poe. This seems to be the only occasion where Beardsley's face appears on a postage stamp, albeit the size of a pinhead. In 2007, Royal Mail issued 6 stamps commemorating various albums by the Beatles, and Sgt. Pepper was included. His drawings did make a bigger appearance on the San Marino stamp of 2004 for Wilde's 150th birthday. That's Salome from the San Marino, and then Oscar Wilde's caricature of Oscar Wilde here at the top. Moving swiftly on from the Beatles and onto the subject of music. As a child, Beardsley played the piano, and it was thought that perhaps this may be his forte in life. He loved the operas of Wagner and illustrated many of the characters. Then, in 1977, he went to number 3 of the UK charts thanks to this man. Rod apparently wrote this song as a tribute to his current girlfriend, Britt Eklund. Many of you will be familiar with the chorus of this song, but how many of you are aware of this verse? Another singer of Scots descent is Nick Curry, who performs under the name Momus. His 1996 album, 20 Vodka Jellies, features the track track London 1888. This is the album cover. The song is sung from the perspective of a 21st century Japanese man from Tokyo who travels back in time and describes the things he experiences. So you can see that's London 1888 there with the coach, and then this is 21st century Japan here. Next we have another song, Stand Inside Your Love. It's another love song, this time written by Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. Oops. While the lyrics do not make reference to Beardsley, the accompanying video released in 2000 is a recreation of the Salome story, incorporating elements of his illustrations. The look of the video was developed by the director Wiz to give an early silent film aesthetic and features Yelena Yemchuk, for whom the song was written, as Salome. I can't show you the video again. Here's a few pictures, but I recommend you have a look at the song video, but also there's a making of video as well that you can see, which is very interesting, only short. So here's just a few pictures, so you can get the idea of the style. In July 1887, Beardsley had one of his poems published in Brighton Society magazine. A ride in an omnibus tells readers about the trials of using this form of transport, depicting the various characters one was likely to be squashed up with, and it doesn't sound entirely different from today. He may be surprised to learn that he has had his own bus in Brighton since 2003. The first attempt was spelt incorrectly as Beardsley. This was corrected and the bus was repainted a couple of times over the years. In 2016, his name was transferred to a new vehicle, decorated inside and out by the local artist Jason McQuillan. So if you're in Brighton and you spot this bus, it's the Aubrey Beardsley bus. Finally, we end with the world of ceramics. In 1979, Paul Pottery produced the Beardsley collection, sophisticated yet so simple shapes to be admired, desired and collected. That's what it says on the leaf. Didn't make that bit up. It was so popular that the following year they added to the range. I occasionally buy pieces from this collection, and I was interested to see this vase for sale on eBay. The seller says, there is a slight uneven finish in the glaze to the top rim, and that is the reason that the vase is marked as factory seconds. Not to be outdone, in 2006, Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen produced his magnificent range of flouncy mugs. Here is his Beardsley design. You could complement this with an Oscar, arabesque, burlesque and tasseltastic. Last but not least is my latest purchase, which brings me back to my original inspiration. Yes, it's a Salome chopping board, available from eBay. Before I'm cut off, I would like to finish with a quote from Beardsley's obituary by Gleason White, editor of the Studio magazine. Death has given Aubrey Beardsley the immortality of youth, and in the future histories of illustration, whether for blame or praise, men must need add that it was a mere boy who did these things, and did them as no other had attempted to do them before. Thank you.